Welcome to the Author Next Door,
where we talk writing, publishing, and the business behind the books.
This podcast is for writers who are a few steps ahead into the journey. Maybe you've published, maybe you're planning what's next, and you realize the questions aren't getting easier. They're just getting more interesting.
Sometimes it's just our fabulous selves. Sometimes we bring friends to the table, but it's always lived experience and information you can use.
So pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome to episode 75. I'm Angela Haas, and I'm here with my co-host, Cassie Newell. And this month, we've been talking about how to create community. Most of us start out thinking success in the author business comes from writing the next book, learning the next marketing tactic, or figuring out the latest publishing trend. But over time, many authors discover that some of the most valuable opportunities, friendships, and career moments come from the people we meet along the way. Totally true. So today we're diving into a question that's bigger than writing. How do we build a community people actually want to be a part of? To help us answer that, we're joined by a group of authors who have helped build one of the most respected communities, the Superstars Writing Seminars. What started as a small group of writers has grown into a thriving conference and a year-round community that keeps authors coming back year after year. Before we get started, let's go around the table. We are sitting at a table, just suspend your disbelief, and let our superstars introduce themselves. Superstars, welcome. First of all, thank you so much for your time. Tell listeners a little bit about who you are and your career and how you are involved in Superstars, and then I'll ask our first question.
My name is James A. Owen. I'm an author and an illustrator. I started out in comics a very long time ago, did comics mostly through the 90s, and then started writing and illustrating young adult fantasy novels in the 2000s. And I am named as one of the founders of Superstars, even though I came in at year 3. I'd been working on a project with Kevin, and so I was staying with them up in Colorado and telling some of these stories and some of my experiences, and he thought I would be a good fit for a guest speaker. So they invited me to be at the third one, and I got a standing ovation at a professional conference for my talk, and all of them took note of that. And so they invited me back. And that next year, I got a similar response to my talk, Drawing Out the Dragons. And in the security line at the airport going home, Eric Flint, who was one of the founders proper, turned to me and said, you changed this thing. And we started this, and you came in, and it wouldn't be the same if you weren't here. And would you like to be our partner? And that's how I became one of the founders. And I've been involved pretty deeply ever since.
I'll go next since I punted to James. So my name's Steve Ruskin. I actually kind of started writing fiction because I learned about Superstars, which was in my hometown in Colorado Springs. I came in like 2015, 2016, about 6 or 7 years after it started. And I'd written nonfiction for a long time. And I knew about Kevin Anderson as well, who James mentioned. Kevin J. Anderson, sort of a well-famous science fiction and fantasy author who just happens to live in the area as well, and had sort of brought Superstars to Colorado Springs after it bounced around a little bit. Not bounced, but they had it in different places. Anyway, I was like, that sounds cool. And I had been writing nonfiction as a historian for many years. And I was like, it'd be fun to write fiction. And long story short, I even emailed Kevin. I'm like, I kind of am interested in writing fiction. Could I, and he said, yeah, it's great. If you haven't done anything. And then I felt kind of like a phony. So I started writing short stories and submitting them before my first Superstars. And I was, fortunate enough, or barely skilled enough. And I had what's called a pro sale in that first year. I was really excited, which means you get paid professional rates. It's kind of like the first step in. And then I was like, Kevin, can I come now? He's like, well, you could always come, but something like that. And he said, but yes, come. And so I did. And I've been coming pretty much every year since. And now I am on staff. And I am also on the board of directors, and since written a lot more than just the one story, but that's what Superstars does for you.
Mark and Todd, rock, paper, scissors.
Go ahead, Mark.
I kind of wanted to see the rock, paper, scissors, but okay,
we were going to just
ahead.
do it live here, but it's okay. Thanks.
I'm game.
Okay, let's do it. Rock, paper, scissors. You ready?
Your scissors killed my scissors. Go ahead, Todd. You got this one.
All right. So yeah, I was never much for conferences, and I got invited to come and do what we call first pages party now by my friend Chris, who was essentially the director of the conference at the time. After going, I mean, the thing that we were talking about at the beginning, where about where like some of the most valuable things you can do as an author is meet people in hallways and talk to them one on one. And so for me, like going to a conference is always like, there's so much stuff that's being taught that I already know. And even if there's something that you already know, you can go to the class and you're still going to pull 10%, 15% new stuff that you don't know. So there's always a quotient of worth there. But I just didn't go much for the workshops. And when I went to Superstars, just the conversations and the people that I met and this thing that James was talking about, that like this undercurrent. And if you haven't seen his drawing out the dragons, boy, it's absolutely everything that he's claiming and more. And it gives a certain feel. And I think that I didn't realize that was when that had sort of cropped up, it sounds like. And that feel at Superstars, where this sort of camaraderie and this notion that we can learn from each other and lean on each other and then become better because of it. That's stuff that happens in the hallways most of the time. At least for me, that's the way that it did. And so I remember the first 3 or 4 years, I was always telling myself, like, I think I came in 2017 was the first year. And the first 3 or 4 years, I was like, I'm not going back. I don't need to spend this time and the money and all that stuff. And I always ended up getting convinced by Chris. And every time I went, it was just as spectacular as the previous year. So after 3 years of that, I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm a lifer now. I guess I have to keep coming.
And I'm going to be another lifer with Superstars. My writing background is, I got my first rejection in 1985, at the age of 15. My first story was published in 92. My first book, self-published in 2004, and I am traditionally published and self-published. Now, I'd met Kevin and Rebecca in the early aughts, in the early 2000s, when they were guests of honor in Niagara Falls, New York, at a little mini con. And I bonded with Kevin over, imagine this, beer and Rush. And that was it. The friendship was solidified from those two things. But I remember asking, the funny thing was it was a very small con, like 100 people. And it was not a big thing. And it was kind of like, hey, you're a New York Times bestselling author. You've done all these, like the Star Wars, because I'd read the Star Wars books Kevin and Rebecca had written, The Young Jedi Knights, to my kid. Yeah. And I was very excited to meet them because, they'd been part of our lives. And I was like, why would big New York Times bestselling authors come to this piddly little conference? And Kevin said, well, it was a free trip to Niagara Falls. We've never been. So I thought, but it was that down-to-earth nature that initially warmed me up to Kevin and Rebecca. Now, I ended up starting Kobo Writing Life in 2011. And I brought Kevin was going to be in New York at the same time, and he was open to the idea of indie publishing. You got to remember, this is the early days, right?
Yeah.
And so when I first went to the very first Superstars in 2013, so the fourth year, when we finally landed on just keeping it in Colorado Springs rather than moving around, I was there representing Kobo, and I was one of those weird quiet voices in the back of the room saying, hey guys, self-publishing's a thing, you should try it, because the majority of the conference was about traditional publishing. Eric Flint, I still I learned so much when he would break down a publishing contract and how to read it and how to understand it. And I remember just how amazing this was, because this was the first conference I'd gone to that was traditional in spirit, but was open to people having different ideas and perspectives. So even though I was the weirdo in the room, I was still loved and accepted. And I did truly feel like I had found my family, that I had found that thing that, when James did his talk and I was there and again, standing, applauding, you're like, oh my God, this is life-changing. And I knew I was going to come back every single year. And because I've been coming back every single year, there was an attempt to make me director, but we realized I am not good at organizing. So that was not a good fit at all. So I got put into the role of master of ceremonies for the conference, figuring you're here, you may as well do some work while you're hanging out with all these people. And I am, like Steve, I'm lucky to have joined the board of directors, and I get an opportunity to help, support this conference by doing a lot of that volunteer work behind the scenes as well.
That's great.
I can say that
Yeah.
that Superstars, the price of entrance alone is worth it to see Mark and James do the Blues Brothers on stage for various. So everything else is gravy.
That's why we come. That's all it is. Well, and I can speak to the first time I went, I had gone to what was still 20 books to 50K, which was still a fabulous conference at the time. But it was almost, and I'm an extrovert, and it was almost too big for me because I just didn't know how to make those connections because there were so many people. And it seemed like they all had their little groups. And gosh, I don't even know how to start. But where I felt different at Superstars was the hallways are smaller in the way that there's like you actually have access to people. You can stop people and have conversations, you know. And I love, James, that you host the breakfasts where you can pay a little extra and it's not much to buy your breakfast and have it with James and have this more intimate conversation that you wouldn't have at the bigger conferences. And that's why I love this conference because it's the First Pages party. I went to one of those. We met Sabine and Lindsay Flanagan. Did I? Yes.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
we
That
just
was
stumbled into
year.
this. That was actually, that was when at the Antlers when we sat down with
2024.
them. Yeah. And we just wandered in because Cassie and I were like, why are these people here? And we just sat down at the table and they're like, oh, yeah, you can show us, you know, your first chapter. And I showed mine to Sabine and she completely changed the whole route of my book. And I left like with Angel singing. I was like, that was crazy. That doesn't happen at other conferences, you know? And she just completely helped me in about a 20-minute conversation. That's nuts. Like, how does that happen? So from the author experience too, it's so much more intimate because I think you all cap it, don't they? Isn't there a cutoff that it's, and I'm not sure what that number
You mean the
is.
numbers of attendees?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a cap. I don't know
What's
if we've ever actually reached it, but we've gotten close. But it's
okay.
right now 350, 400, somewhere in there. Is that what you said?
400.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And which is still a lot of people, but it's so much more, it was more manageable for me because my energy wasn't completely depleted. Thank you all for that. So what I want to ask is when you're just starting out, sometimes it's like, I don't even know where to find my people or the tribe, as Superstars calls it, your tribe. But how, as authors, do we create relationships that last in this industry that can sometimes feel lonely when you're just starting out? And where do we even find our people? Where do we begin?
You know, there was something I think you might have been at one of the breakfasts where I started
Mhm.
showing the video that my son did for his scholarship. That's been a recent thing. My
Mhm.
son did a project for an entrepreneurial scholarship at his high school. It was based on my Eggs Benedict breakfast and my Eggs Benedict talk. And he made these little How's Your Eggs Benedict keychains that he sold to a lot of superstars during COVID when nobody could come and attend Superstars. But he mentioned something in that video that I hadn't realized had stuck with him. And it was a quote from Zig Ziglar, who was one of my first great teachers about the kind of presentations that I do, motivation and inspiration. And Zig's quote that Nathaniel quoted was, you can get everything in life that you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And if you go into any situation not looking primarily at what am I going to get out of this, but how can I bring my skills and my experience to bear to help as many people in this room get what they want, then suddenly that is the definition of community. Because
Mhm.
that they look at you
Love that.
doing what you can to help them, and then it all becomes stone soup. Well, what can we contribute that'll make this just a little bit better? What can I do for that New York Times best-selling author who started this? What can I do for Kevin that can maybe make his job just a little bit easier? And when that's how you go into an entire building full of people for a weekend, that is community.
Yeah, that absolutely. Yeah.
If I can add on to that, I want to address any of the introverts or the people who are not comfortable going into crowds and stuff like that. You have a skill. You probably have something that you know you're very passionate about. Maybe it's craft beer. Maybe you're a big fan of Spider-Man. Maybe whatever you love to nerd out on. That's something
Mhm.
that's probably unique to you, but that other people will have in common. Like some people will want to know about it. Think about the things that you're passionate about and excited about talking about, and you're willing to share. I bet you're willing to share to help people learn, because a writer may need to learn how to fix a car because one of the characters in the story is a mechanic. Like there's all kinds of reasons. It doesn't have to be about the business of writing and publishing, which is what Superstars is focused on. It can be anything because craft is also very important. So when you go to a situation like that and you're worried about worried about how to talk to people or whatever, that could be a great opportunity by looking for things you can give because you're comfortable with that. You know this world, and that may give you a little bit more confidence. I mean, I call myself an omnivore. I'm actually not good at, if I walk into a room, I don't know who to talk to. There's all these people, I get overwhelmed. And if I see a friendly face, someone I know, I'll kind of go over to them and go, "Hey, Todd, how's it going? I like your hair. I like your beard's longer than it was before," like whatever, right? I don't know what to say. But anyone who approaches me to ask me questions because they go, "Oh, you worked for Kobo, can I ask you a question?" Or, about Draft to Digital or whatever, I'm immediately happy to help them. And that puts me at ease actually, because I'm like, "Oh, I have a purpose here." And honestly, that purpose can actually be the difference between me feeling a little bit more outgoing and being part of the community. So it kind of ties into what James was talking, I think.
So what you're saying is that the beard compliment was just a nervous compliment for you?
It was a nervous compliment, but it's still a really nice beard. Even I do like it shorter, by the way.
So I did actually want to add on to what Mark was saying. There are most people that go to writers conferences, and Superstars is no exception, are introverts. All of us have an introverted streak, at least a little bit, but there are some who are very extroverted. Like it is part of their mission, as James was mentioning, to bring people into things. And there are some superheroes in that respect. I'm gonna bring up Damon Courtney because he's the one that comes to my
Mhm.
mind.
Yeah.
He's the founder and owner of BookFunnel, which if you're an indie author and you don't know about BookFunnel, you need to find out about BookFunnel. That's my plug for you, Damon. But yeah, I mean, I was at Superstars just this last time and we were all sitting at breakfast and Damon's talking because Damon's often talking, right? And he's like looking at everybody and this one guy's kind of walking by looking for somewhere to sit. And Damon gets up, goes over, is like, "You should come over and join us." And he just kind of like looks like deer in the headlights. He's like, "No, it's okay. Come on, sit down." And kind of comes over and sits down. And then he was part of the group, right? I mean, there are people at Superstars that do that sort of thing. So they're kind of like rescuers. They sort of come in and grab you. So that's one of the ways to get in and be part of the conference. I mean, I'll be the first to say that sometimes you go to a conference and for the very first day you feel isolated, you feel alone, you feel like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm an imposter. I don't belong here. Look at all these superstars and there's just me. I mean, all those things have gone through my mind many times. There are people that really help with that at Superstars for sure.
Yeah. All
I
cons
think
have culture. Oh, sorry, Cassie, go ahead.
I was just going to add to Mark and Todd really quickly because I went to Colorado Springs from Florida, actually, because Angela said, "Come with me." And I was so excited because I wanted the smaller conference. But I think I'm an ambivert. And for me, I'm going to be like the Ted Lasso of the group. Be curious. Just ask questions, talk to people because the more you are curious and get to know people, the more you get included, is how I think Superstars just naturally, everybody that attends, when you start being curious, you just kind of fit in just really easily. There's no subtext around it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Superstars, to be quite honest. I'm sorry, Steve. I just wanted to
No,
add
no.
that really
No,
quickly.
no. I mean, we're all basically saying the same sort of thing about how welcoming Superstars is. I think what I was
Mhm.
going to say was that all cons have cultures, and the
Mhm.
Superstars one is particularly welcoming, and I think it's known for that. And, big cons like Dragon Con have many subcultures. Writers in particular, because that's what this podcast is about, you need to go. So cons have cultures, but as writers, especially if you're introverts, which I think most writers are, Todd's absolutely correct. You need to go where people like you are. And then you will find those little connecting points like Mark points out. But Superstars is wonderful for that. And it really brings writers together. And as long as you go, and you have to go, you can't just do the online thing. I mean, this is wonderful what we're doing now, but There's nothing like being in the hallway, like Angela says, talking with people, bumping with people, walking into breakfast and having people call you over and sit down and read your first chapter or just introduce you to so-and-so. Hey, I heard you talking about, you're into fantasy. These are 3 fantasy writers. You got to know these guys and girls. Then what happens is you start to form these friendships. You know these names and you take it with you. You take it when you leave. And then you do start, getting online or here in Colorado Springs, because so many of us are here. Just the other day I saw Todd and a bunch of us at a brewery. We meet once a month. You don't have to drink. I don't even drink that much anymore, but we go a lot and we get together and we hang out and we talk about what's working in marketing and how our progress is. None of this would have happened for me, for example. I wouldn't have known any of these wonderful people if I hadn't gone to Superstars, if I hadn't put myself out there, been in the same rooms, started connecting. And, when you have those connections, things that you share, that's what friendships and communities are, right? Shared similarities in groups of people. So that's the way to do it. But you got to take that first step. You got to go, at least with Superstars. Once you're there, it's extremely welcoming. It's so welcoming.
Steve, let me ask a follow-up question to that. So, what are some intentional things you've done or that you would recommend other writers do to keep that connection going year round? Because some of us get a little starstruck when we meet Mark for the first time or James for the first time. And we're like, okay, yeah, sure, I've seen them at several conferences now, but I'm not like just going to hit them up. Are there intentional things you would recommend for people to do in order to keep that going and to facilitate meeting people and starting those conversations outside of the conference?
Yeah, and it takes courage. I mean, I'm always starstruck when I see Mark. I'm struck right now. I can't even help myself. I'm speechless. But so Superstar, here's an example. So you learn quickly that you are welcome at a place like Superstars. My first year, I somehow got caught up in this group and I was suddenly having lunch with Eric Flint, Jody Lynn Nye, Todd McCaffrey. And I'm like in a booth with these squished in here with these people. And me and this other guy, I think it was Steve Wendell, we're just looking at each other like we don't belong here, but we did, and they welcomed us. When you have an experience like that, when you are texting with Kevin Anderson or Jim Butcher, you're talking with them in the hall, whatever, these are the big names, and they're just talking with you because they're normal people. So that's you can quickly, if you just are sensible about it, then you realize, hey, they are just normal people, and it's cool. I belong here too. Yeah, sure, they're further along, and that's those are the people you learn from. But so you kind of get that, you do want to kind of get that starstruck stuff out of the way as best you can. And that's just kind of being human and accepting that they're accepting you, right? You got to do that. You got to have the courage to accept their part of you. And then I think, and the other folks here can talk too, but you really just you do have to make an effort. If you want to keep those connections going, you got to reach out. I go to beer nights every couple Mondays or so because I like these guys. But, even if I didn't, I know that, but if I was nervous about it or just too shy, you kind of got to go anyway. But it helps finding your people. So and the other, the rest might have some thoughts too.
Well, I'll add on. Oh, go ahead, James.
You do have to ask for what you want. And if you're a writer who is wanting to maintain those connections, people, we have these little subgroups, some based on geography, like your Monday night get-togethers, where people get together in person and make those connections. But I see an awful lot of newer writers that are afraid to reach out during the year. And I've been doing this covers workshop for the last several years. And just in the last 2 years, I've told people, come to me after the workshop. Come to me before publication. Let me help you. This doesn't end at the workshop at Superstars. You can reach out at any point to ask for help. And this year, I've had maybe 3 that came back to me afterwards and said, what do you think about this? And then we workshopped it a little bit more. And then a couple of days later, I would see them announce the launch of their new book. And there's the cover that we were doing just a couple of days earlier. And I thought, that's what I wanted. I wanted to be useful to them in a very meaningful, purposeful way. And
great.
They told me they held out. They wanted to hit me up before Christmas and waited, and then came to the workshop and then waited, and then finally decided I need to have somebody look at this. And once they did, they realized I was completely open about being willing to do that. And so are Jim, and so is Kevin and Todd. And all these people are pretty genuine about those offers to help. And people have to be willing to actually reach out and take that hand that's offered.
Because when somebody does that, as a somebody who, I mean, I've been friends with Jonathan Mayberry for years. We've sat on so many
Yeah,
panels, had
he's
drinks
so good.
together, dinners,
Yeah.
whatever. And I was like, oh, I was going to ask him for a blurb for my horror collection. And I was scared, even though, and then of course I was like, okay, I get the shortest stories possible. These are in audio, so it won't take much of your time. You don't have to read the whole thing. And he's like, just send me the whole book. And then he came back to me within 24 hours and he's like, oh, you're twisted. I love it. And sent me this amazing blurb. But I've known him for years and I was still scared. So
Right.
anyone who asks, I recognize how powerfully brave they are. They're 1,000 times braver than I am. And I will make time for anyone who asks me something because I'm a big chicken and I'm afraid to ask, and I'm afraid to ask friends for, for favors and stuff like that. So anyone who has that, I'm like, wow, I'm really, first of all, I'm so excited and I've learned from you. Thank you for teaching me how to be a little bit more brave. Now, I will always give them that time. I mean, I've put my phone number on a big screen in the main room of Superstars and said, if you need anything, you just need someone to talk to, give me a call. If I can answer the phone, I will. Leave me a message, I'll get back to you. Very few people actually have taken me up on it. And it was kind of like, really, I'm surprised because I'd love to see more people because I can't get to those fun little brewery events in Colorado Springs. It's a pretty long commute for me.
It's a little Canada. It's a little far.
Yeah, it was great when he put his phone up there. I mean, as often as I can, whenever I'm up at 2 a.m., I always try and text something random too. I wanted to add to the whole thing about broaching a new connection with someone. Because I mean, you're listening to Mark, and he's known Jonathan for however many years, and finally, after that many years, decides he's going to ask him. Sometimes you don't know anybody, and you haven't known them at all ever, right? But one of the things that I've noticed about writers is if you want to get to know them, ask them questions. There's not a single writer I know that wouldn't want to answer questions about stuff that they're interested in. So, I mean, like, think about asking them about their project. I mean, everybody wants to tell about their own project, right? They want to come up, they want somebody to go, wow, that's amazing. I've
Right.
never heard that before. It's the rarer person that comes up and says, hey, James, I saw your speech. I would love to chat with you for like 10 minutes. Can you spare a moment? And then when you get those 10 minutes, ask James about what he's doing, because you know what? James is going to love that. He's going to love talking about what he's doing. I know, because I would. If somebody said, hey, what are you working on? And they wanted to just listen to me for 10 minutes, just blather about what I'm working on. And then I'm going to have a really good feeling about that person. It's true. Anybody would, right? When they get to talk about themselves, anybody has a good feeling about that. And then you start to build that connection. I mean, and if you're going to go to Superstars a couple of times, that connection is going to grow. So for those of you that have never met any of the, the big ones before, or even the medium ones, or even the smaller ones, like, go up, ask them what they're working on, make it real, be genuine. And I think, I don't know, for me, the genuine contacts, that's what I really want. There's lots of bits of information and you can get a lot of that stuff online, but in my life and in the conferences, I want those genuine connections. I want a real conversation. I want to know the strange and quirky things about people. That's what interests me, right? And so I think that allowing someone to tell you their interesting, quirky things creates an immediate bond. So that's what I would do if I was new at a conference.
Yeah. I was even like, I want to have all these superstars on our podcast. And I was even kind of afraid to ask all of you. Because I think there's this perception, for me anyway, that, well, everyone's so busy. I mean, they don't have time to come to my little corner, but I was thinking that way for Superstars. How can we use our business, the Garden of the Gods Trading Post, and partner with Superstars, and we become a sponsor, and we're going to do lunch now after Kevin does his hike. And I'm like, that's how I wanted to be part of it. Like, how can we share? Because we're local. These are local authors. How can we have a mutual relationship? But even then, I just felt like I've been a retail buyer, merchandiser, gallery owner. I just didn't even think I belonged in here as, like, first a sci-fi writer and then a romance writer. That was never my life. I always was a writer. but my work was always something different. So when I showed up at these conferences, I'm like, well, yeah, I kind of have a book. I don't really know how to talk about it. And then for me to feel like I could just have access to all of you, it just felt so intimidating. But it's almost like just think you belong and you will. And so I've had to start to tell myself that. But Cassie and I did a corner Mark at that mixer 2 years ago because we walked into that big mixer and we're like, see the tallest man here, so we'll just go over there and
Gravitate.
talk to we're just like, oh, there's someone. I mean, I think we did have intentional questions, but you were so gracious. Just even like we were in the corner, and we are extroverts. But it
Yeah.
still was for me. I can't speak for Cassie. Thank God she was my wing person because how do we navigate this room? Everyone's like doing their thing. And I didn't want to be like, hi, I'm Angela. What's up? I didn't even
See,
know
I
what
would
to
totally
say.
respond well to that. If you can remember, hi, I'm Angela. What's up?
Yeah, that's how I mean, sometimes me being extroverted, I know I overwhelm introverts because I'm like, can we be friends? My quirky thing is I'm terrified of ET. When I was a kid, I saw it in the theater and hid under the seats and I hate the sound he makes. And that's my thing. Can we talk about it?
And either you find that endearing or not.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, let's
I
talk
can't.
about it. Oh my God, that is so awesome.
Everyone thought this was great. And I'm like, I think this thing is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. Same when I saw Jaws. I had a waterbed when I was a kid. And my mother came in and found me sleeping on the floor with a protective dolphin circle of stuffed animals around me. And she's like, what are you doing? She's like, well, I had a dream. There's obviously a shark in the waterbed at any time. I could have died. That was my imagination. So, but
How
yeah,
is that
so
not
now
insulting to it right now? The shark in the waterbed.
I was like, there's water in here and sharks are in water. So I mean, I feel this is a hazard.
Brilliant deduction.
Like,
Syllogism, sharks live in water. Water beds have water. The ergo, water beds have sharks.
Yeah. This is a death trap. Thanks, Mom.
I
Thanks,
was like,
Dad.
But can I
Mom,
just
how
say,
this is
Todd, you were
crazy.
going to say something, Todd?
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying, Angela. So, but you see, you're a perfect example of what James said about, the Zig Ziglar quotation. You've been contributing amazingly to the community already. And it just makes us want to serve you more because, yes, you have a pretty cool facility in the Garden of God's Trading Post. You've hosted a few, 3 or 4 book sales already, which I've been involved with 2, maybe 3. They were amazing, selling our books to local community. You allow some of us to sell our books, and tourists buy them and stuff. I mean, it's all that sort of thing is really neat. And so, it makes me want to just, if you say you be on my podcast, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm happy to do it. And so that's exactly that point, those, giving what we can and helping each other out. And it's fun. It's not like it's effort or like it's a real hassle or something. I mean, I love it. I love doing stuff with you guys and girls.
Go ahead,
Something
Cassie.
that got set up very early on, probably it's probably Kevin and Rebecca. Well, that whole group, that
Mhm.
whole founding group, Kevin and Rebecca and Eric, Dave, and Brandon, they presented this as a professional seminar from the
Mhm.
start. So that first 3 dozen attendees they had were welcomed in that room as peers that simply had less experience than the instructors did. And I think that attitude is carried forward with the guest instructors that we've managed to add on, the ones that have become perennials.
Mhm.
And I think that's become the general consensus is it's not gatekeeping. If you came to Superstars, you're there for professional reasons. You're there because you're taking your career seriously and you're going to be treated like you're taking it seriously. And I think that clears out a lot of debris and roadblocks in terms of engaging and feeling like part of the community.
I love that. I was just going to ask in this last conference, what are 2 key takeaways that you took from the conference, just to give a flavor for listeners, because we get a very experienced group really listening to us. I mean, I just today published my 18th book, so there's all kinds of listeners here. So just to give an idea of, at your varying levels, what 2 things did you get out of the last?
So one of the things I'm doing a lot at the conference. I'm up really early, either to introduce James for the breakfast or to get things ready for the MC. And compile all the notes and the announcements and stuff like that. So try really hard I want to get some rest because I'm going to need my energy. And the karaoke night was an example of people don't want to see me. They've seen enough of me. Let's let other people have the stage. So I avoided going to karaoke night because I didn't want to lose my voice. I didn't want to do whatever. And I wanted to get my rest and just let other people have fun on a stage. And I realized somebody ended up dragging me there because I was going to go to bed and call it a night. And somebody ended up dragging me there. And the conversations I had in the back of the karaoke room, being able to see people I hadn't seen sing before, to cheer them on, made me happy. It made me feel good because it reminded me there were other elements of not just the hallway conversations, not just the official content, but this is I think the Book Funnel sponsored karaoke party as well. And I also had an opportunity to chat with people I hadn't had a chance to speak with before. So it gave me the richness of experiencing them in a comfortable environment where we're both relaxed. And so I learned that maybe it's okay for me not to get as much sleep because the opportunity to connect. I'm not saying don't sleep and burn yourself out, but I'm saying I learned it's okay to get a few hours less sleep than I would have preferred to have because it gives me something I can't get any other place in the same way I get from Superstars, the relationships. And I had that experience as well with one of the breakfasts. I decided to have breakfast with a group of people rather than eat by myself and get a whole bunch of things done in the background. And taking that extra time to have breakfast with a group of people I got to know, found a new narrator for one of my audiobooks, and also found someone as well to invite to an anthology that I was editing as well. So the things I remind myself that I think I'm part of the community, but there are still so many other people I haven't connected with in the way I should. And those connections, because this is about connections, right? Those connections are the things that I honestly believe make a significant difference and have always made a difference in my own career. Every single opportunity I've had have come probably because of a connection with a person somewhere. Yes, I've worked hard, and yes, I've worked at my craft, and I've submitted, and I've taken chances, but it goes back to that connection you don't expect. It was in the green room at ErieCon late night drinking with Kevin that, first dragged me to Superstars in the first place. Right. And that was just because I'm like, should I go to bed or should I just go have a beer with some of these people?
Please choose the beer.
Yeah.
Let me say for since we're talking to people who are sort of maybe early-ish on in their career, maybe beginners, maybe, a few books in or whatever, who may not know much about Superstars. Superstars has different tracks like many author conferences. It was business focused initially, but now because we have such amazing staff, faculty, whatever, we have, craft day. So we'll have tracks, we'll have business tracks, we'll have craft tracks, and they sort of break down in little subcategories from there, but which is amazing. So, your question was two things that were takeaways. I've been going for almost 10 years, I guess. Yeah, about 10 years. I always try to learn something that it's relevant to what I'm working on now or what I need now. And I always try to learn things that I didn't even know that I might need or might want to pursue in the future. So I won't get into specifics, but I'm definitely focused on Facebook marketing now. And I absolutely learned some great stuff from people like Blaze Ward. And he's did more Amazon, but I learned a lot about some online advertising stuff I didn't, which I'm very into right now. Which I'm deep in right now because I'm spending a lot of money and selling books, fortunately. So those were things I could apply immediately. Then there are things that I don't do so much, which is like selling in person. And I attended this awesome talk by a guy named Todd Fahnestock, who talked about how he sells in person. And he's seriously incredible. I know I'm putting him on the spot here and making him laugh, but he has these amazing talks about how he sells at cons. And there is really no one better. He gets invited all over the country to speak about talking in person, but he had this amazing new talk this year about how he had this just breakout year. And I don't even know if it's online, but you should absolutely come if for no other reason to hear Todd talk about how he sells in person, how enthusiastic he is. It makes me want to do it, even though I really don't do that. But that's the sort of thing I then file away. So that's in that category of things I might want to do. And that's just two examples of, how many sessions do we have over the course of the 5 days? 4 days, 5 days? We've got well over 100 total. So there's something for everyone at every stage. no matter what you want to know, you can find it.
So are we still doing takeaways from the last conference? Well, one of my takeaways is that apparently Steve liked my talk. That's pretty cool. And also that Marie's suite always has secret food. I learned that as well. That was a good one. So no, I would say the thing that really struck, and it's, I mean, some of the similar themes come up year over year for me, but there's always something new. And I would say one of the things that struck me the hardest this last time is that we are all on a very similar journey, all of us writers.
Mhm.
Whether you sell 10 books a year or 10,000 books a year, the writer's life is so eerily familiar. One of the things I always like to talk about is imposter syndrome, because I'm out there, I've got super fans that are waiting for the next book, and I go to cons and talk to hundreds of people every time I go to a con. And I heard this interview with Steven Spielberg, and the interviewers were like, so how do you know? Like, how do you know that this movie you're putting together is going to be this great success? And his answer was, I don't. Every time. I think it's going to be a big, huge bomb every time. I think it's, it may work, it may work, not work. I mean, you just keep getting up to the plate and you keep swinging. And that is exactly what James is doing. That's exactly what Kevin J. Anderson is doing, and Jim Butcher. I mean, they're getting up and they're swinging at the plate. And sometimes these things that we see that we can label successes come from a whole lot of hard work. And sometimes it just freaking happens. Like I had an event when I was at Planet Comic Con, it was a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden there was a line at my booth. Like it was going down the aisle. And I'm like, well, I've never had a line at my booth before. I mean, people were just coming up. I didn't even have to pitch them. It was like they saw these people gathered at the booth and they thought something was going on, I guess. And so they were coming up, and I'm just like shoveling books out the door as fast as I can. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm like famous now, right? But it didn't, that's the only time it's ever happened like that, where it was like for an hour and a half solid, we couldn't get to the people and they were happy to wait. And so these things come and go. These successes come and go. And you got to get up the next morning. You got to put on your pants just the same way you did the morning before, and you be an author, right? So that struck me really hard at the conference this last time. That's just weird. No matter whether you've just written your first book or you've written your 100th book, there's so much that binds us together in the creation of these things.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
For takeaway, I think this last 2 years, for me, it's been realizing that there is as much inspiration that I can draw on from the up and coming generation as the previous generations. We tend to look at the ones that preceded us and the works that inspired us. Well, you know what? We're 15 years in at Superstars, and we've got a lot of people come in completely new and then built a career. And
Right.
they built a career making their own choices for the things that worked best for them in the context of this community. And they learned things that we didn't teach. They have things to contribute. And I'm looking at this younger generation of writers and artists and photographers and storytellers and realizing there's a wealth there to draw on. But sometimes they're reluctant to volunteer because of the imposter syndrome and because of I've only been doing this for 5 years. And that's when I tell them, you were professional the first day you got here. You've
Right.
proven it with everything you've been doing since. And I love what you're doing. And if you would give me the opportunity, I would like to learn how you solve some of these problems, because I think you can be a big help to me. And that takes a little bit of bravery both directions, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good tip. I think volunteering is a great way to network. I think getting in behind the scenes, and I was a moderator that second year, and that was pretty fun just because I got to feel like I was seeing the behind the scenes of how we do stuff at the conference and how things run on that scale. I mean, I didn't see the whole picture, but volunteering, if you want to start at a conference and start to really get to know people, volunteering is a fantastic way to do that, because you get access that you wouldn't normally have, and you're helping. You actually have something to do, which lends itself to other conversations because you're not just kind of walking in.
And you were an awesome moderator.
Thanks. As we're sort of coming to a close, what are some is there just general conference do's and don'ts for people? Tips, tricks, hacks? Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
thought I'd just jump in. Yeah, actually, water is good, not just because the altitude in Colorado Springs, but in
hmm
general, if you're doing a lot of talking, you're losing a lot of that. And I did learn that the water molecules in your mouth actually prevent a virus and bacteria from getting in. They actually, so it's good. It's healthy. It's very healthy for you to stay hydrated. So especially when you're at a conference, right? Because sleep is important too. I did joke about, or I mentioned that for me is like, well, an extra hour of sleep would have been nice, but I got to chat with people. But don't, take care of yourself first. But here's the thing. I'm going to go back to the fact that I'm probably one of the more awkward people, the shyer. But if I have a purpose,
It's to the contrary.
if
I
I
know.
have a
He's
I know,
like a
mission,
right?
rock
so here's the
star. I
thing.
don't get it,
I
but
am actually
okay.
shy, but if you say, Mark, you're the MC, therefore you got to go up and tell dad jokes and entertain people and
hmm
whatever. When I have a mission and a purpose, that puts me right in, and I know what I need to be. So a way to do that without saying, hey, can I, like, volunteering is a great opportunity, but your first conference, you first got there, you're not sure what to do. Give yourself a mission. The mission can be a list of a few things that you want to accomplish. Like, okay, these are the sessions I think I want to go to because like, Steve said, I want to learn about this because there's a thing I might need or I need now. But then you may also have a mission. Like, for example, is kind of like, I've read and enjoyed Jim Butcher's stuff, but I don't have a signed copy. So my mission, I want to get a signed copy of Jim's book and just tell him how much Dresden means to me, like one of his characters. Or the thing you want to learn. And if you didn't get it from the session, that so-and-so did a talk, say, hey, Todd, I missed your talk on whatever, for somebody, what's one of the tips? Todd's going to be happy. He's going to be upset that you missed his talk because you decided to go see James instead. But one of the things is Todd will be happy, like he had mentioned earlier, happy to give you a minute and say, yeah, of course I'll share with you, because we're all there to learn and we're all there to share. And this goes back to just something James said is I'm a huge fan of Michael Connelly's Harry Bosch. And Bosch has the saying that everybody counts or nobody counts. And I also go into the conference thinking that there's not a single person here I can't learn from. So if you're there and at your beginning conference, you're like, oh, I'm scared to talk to Kevin Anderson, or I'm scared to talk to whoever's on stage, the guest speaker. There's a person sitting right beside you who's maybe new as well, that you can start there and develop that curation of friendship. You probably help them the way you helped me when you asked me a question to make me feel, oh, I have a purpose. I can answer your question. And you might be able to do that for someone else. So that can be something you can learn from the person sitting beside you as well.
Things that I would suggest, I know that a lot of new conference attendees, they like line out their schedule and fill it with every single workshop that they can from morning till night. And like I said, the conversations in the halls are some of the most valuable things you'll have. And I know for myself, I will stake out time where I'm just going to go sit in an open area where I'm very visible and work on something and just open myself up to somebody walking up to me, or, me walking up to somebody else if I see somebody I want to chat with or whatever, and allow room for that to happen. That'd be my recommendation.
Yeah, I think some people spend the whole conference like that. Like you'll see Dave Butler sometimes or Nick Thacker just holding court, kind of in
Oh,
the
yeah.
bar or lobby and stuff. And it's great though, because that's when you meet people. So, I mean, I think one, neat thing about Superstars is that there was sort of this, to this question, I remember there were a few times, I think Jody Lynn Nye gave these awesome talks about what to do at cons, right? And you'd go through and how to act at cons, whether you're an author or an attendee or both, and all the things from what to pack to what to, drinking water all the time to I think what comes to what I would say was just be brave, which sort of echoes what Mark and Todd have already said. You're not going to get much out of it if you hide in your room. You can't do that as much as your inclination might be. So we're again, most of us are introverts, in at least to some degree. You do have to put yourself out there, but the risk is worth it. And being brave is, I think, my advice in that regard. First, you got to be there, and once you're there, you got to kind of put yourself out there, whatever that means for you. For some people, that's easy. For some, it's very hard, but you got to take those steps. And once you do, you get rewarded 100 times back.
Would say though, I mean, if you need to hide in your room, do it, set a timer.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Make
got to
sure
take breaks for sure. Yeah.
This whole approaching people topic we've been discussing, the thing that came to mind while Steve was talking, there was a convention. It was a spinoff of Phoenix Comic Con that they had at the
Mm-hmm.
sports stadium in Glendale. So it
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit more celebrity oriented, and it was all the playing field was where they had it set up with tables and booths. And I posted something on social media the night before about I'm going to be there, with signings and sketches and smiles. And somebody commented, and bacon. And I said, it wasn't in my original plan. I'll see what I can do. And the next day, while I was setting up the booth, somebody from the stadium staff came over and said, "Are you James Owen?" And I said, "I am." And she turned around and said, "This is him." And some of the catering staff walked up, and this guy had sent me 3 pounds of cooked bacon that they'd arranged
Nice.
in a big soapstone dish with simple flowers and a little note, good luck with your show today. Here's the bacon. Now it's going to be perfect. And I thought, that's just
That's
fantastic, a little
wonderful.
bonkers. But then I had 3 pounds of bacon.
My God.
I thought, what am I can't eat all this bacon. And I thought, I'm going to be the bacon fairy. And I started walking
My gosh.
this convention, just stepping in, would you like a piece of bacon? And they'd look at you like, wow, then realize you have this huge platter full that I could just have some. I said, sure, have some. And then I got bolder. And I went towards the celebrities, and the handler said, "What did you need?" And I said, "I came over to bring them some bacon." So now I'm handing bacon to the cast of Stranger Things, and they're like, "Oh, you're just blessed. He brought us bacon. What was your name, James? Oh, you're blessed. Fantastic." Then I go back through, and all of these people are waving at me from their booths, and some of them are still working on the bacon, and they're like, "That's the guy. He just brought us bacon. This is going to be the best."
Bacon man.
Everyone was happy. And
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the takeaway was, except I accidentally ended up with something that made a lot of people there happy to see me. If you go into this sort of conference with that idea of what can I take in here to make somebody really happy? I mean, even I did a Kickstarter years ago where one of the perks was a 60-minute Zoom call, a consult. The 60 minutes, you ask me whatever you want, and I will
I
help you.
love that.
I got one of the backers said, could that 60 minutes be in person? If I took the time to come all the way up to your studio, and I'm 3 hours from Phoenix by car.
Wow.
This person was in LA. And I said, if you came all the way here and you brought me a pizza from my favorite pizza place, which is a couple miles from here, I would have to let you in the door. And then she scheduled it. And she
I love
showed
it.
up with the pizza and the 60-minute consult for her little product, which she called Mithulu, that I thought was such a great storytelling device. I not only gave her, there we go, I gave her an endorsement, but I gave her my founder's seat. Each one of the founders gets to offer a free membership to Superstars. And I gave it that year to Laura Crenshaw, who then came,
Yeah.
editor there, met her agent at Superstars. I officiated her wedding,
Oh
and
my
she
goodness.
engagement photos for me and my wife.
That's
And
amazing.
now she is a regular part of the tribe. And I just think, if she had not pushed for that, we would have done a Zoom consult. I would still have been impressed. But she showed up in person. She pushed for something. She asked for what she wanted. And I said yes. And now there's this whole connection. Now she and her husband, they're part of Superstars.
Wow.
So ask for what you want. And then when the universe says yes, don't question it. Don't hesitate. Just push forward.
Yeah.
Great.
Cassie, what are some of your hacks? Because you're kind of a seasoned conference goer.
Wear
Especially
comfortable
after
shoes. Like, you
Yes.
guys, let's be practical. I love the advice you're giving, but comfortable shoes are important. Wear comfortable things and wear layers, because last time in 2025, I was like wanting to sit by the fire, but it was so warm in Colorado for whatever reason. I was feeling all close. And then you go inside and then you get cold. So, wear layers, have a nice bag that's like not overly weighing you down too. So I'm just going to give those practical tips.
Yeah, I think those are good. I always say, and I said this to Cassie, have some sort of contact card. Even if you've never published a book, something with your picture or something, so that when someone says, "What do you write?" you can say this and you say, "Hey, let's keep in touch." There's some way to keep in touch with you. And the subliminal message of shoppers is, if you're ever selling at a book con and sometimes you don't have control over it, you should be to the right, because shoppers shop to the right. We all shop to the right and then we go counterclockwise. That's why the grocery stores are set up the same way. Supposedly they want to funnel you through the healthy food first, the produce in some cases, but people naturally, they shop to the right. Anyway, superstars, you are amazing. And I think there's going to be listeners who may be on the fence about what kind of conference to try. And I think this is a fantastic first one to try. Speaking of the people who run it, founded it, managed it, and Cassie and I who have been attendees. So, yes.
A couple of times, a few times.
Yeah. And I get to do 2 presentations for 2027. So,
Nice.
yeah.
But
so
will you be back with the yummy treats from the Garden of the Gods Trading?
Yeah, the Trading Post will have their fudge there. Yep. And that's our number one selling. We sold 13 tons of fudge last year. Tons. Yep.
That's a
That's
whole
the
lot
best
of
selling.
fudge.
And that was
Yep,
just the
it
first
is.
day of Superstars.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we have one more thing to do. This is our Lumatory conversation card. Everyone has to answer or you can't leave. So that's the rule. What is something random that you know way too much about? Not even writing related. What's another random? What's your other compartment of useless information?
19th century history of science.
Okay. Different than mine, but I like that. Wow. 19th. Wow. Okay. History of science.
Tracks.
Okay.
Spam. Not email type spam, the in the can type spam.
My gosh. You're probably the one who has 1,000 recipes for spam. There's so much you can do with it.
Best, including a breakfast recipe with spam and tortillas and hot sauce that I taught Kevin how to do when I stayed with him and Rebecca. And I entered that in database at the Spam Museum in Minnesota, where I explained some of my other favorite recipes, including my personal ratatouille, which is a spam breakfast sandwich that my mother taught me how to make when I was in grade school. And the docent at the Spam Museum took my hand in hers and said, "I'm so glad you came in today. You seem to really know what you're doing with spam."
Oh my gosh. That is
All right.
amazing.
I'm going to follow that with a spam story that I think fits what we're asking about. So the thing that I know a lot about that I have no reason to know a lot about is the trail that goes up to Gunung Agung, which is the holy mountain in Indonesia. I know that it has no switchbacks because I hiked it and it just goes straight up. They don't do switchbacks apparently on the holy mountain. And so it's a lot harder than you think it is. And the guide that takes you up there is in flip-flops and I'm in hiking boots and I'm, big strong. Anyways, he was like a gazelle. I could not keep up with him. So the reason I say this is because the reason I was hiking, one of the reasons I was hiking the mountain is because a friend of mine despises spam. And I think spam is good. I kind of like spam, right? And so he started sending me cans of spam. And so then I started sending him cans of spam. I would take a can of spam to an unusual place, then write wherever it was on the unusual place, and then mail it to him so that he can have this collection of spam. So he had a can of spam from the top of the holy mountain in Gunung Agung, which I thought would be easy to hike, and it was really, really hard.
That's fantastic.
That's truly random. I love it.
I got to add a spam related one. I mean, so Monty Python, references to Monty Python sketches and films, 80s movies, the TV show Perfect Strangers, Cheers, John Hughes
Yes.
movies. I just can talk your ear off about all of that because apparently I'm wanting to live back in the mid 1980s again and share all of my passion about all those things.
Mark, you and I have never had a quote war from movies from the 80s. That was going to be my answer before I said the spam thing. So it's on.
We
totally
should have
on
that as an unofficial thing at Superstars this year, an 80s quote war.
I
80s
will be there.
TV and film, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be fun.
Yep. Cassie?
I know way too many random things that I probably shouldn't know about, but the funnest one is saying southern town names of Tennessee when people come to visit and don't know how to say like Shelbyville and certain town names that are really quite common to us, but and also southern phrases. What does a pickle in a jar actually mean? $1 to a donut and all these phrases that we say in the South, I can decipher for you, and I have that language ability. And I also have the ability to make it up, and my other Southern friends know exactly what I'm talking.
I need to know what dollars to donuts means. What does it
Yeah.
mean?
It's kind of like a penny in a bucket. There's no difference. My grandma used to say that all the time. Dollars to donuts, not a big deal.
Wow. That's amazing. I think the combo of all our random knowledge would just make an absolute game somewhere, like some random activity.
Wait, Angela, you haven't mentioned yours yet, though, have you?
I'm ready to mention mine now. I knew I was getting older because I can randomly identify any bird. We were walking around the lake because we live part-time in Arizona in Rio Verde. And I was like, oh, I didn't know a double-breasted cormorant comes here on their migration. And my husband looked at me like, a what? How do you know what that is? Do you know that they don't have oil on their wings? Their wings are not waterproof, which is why they open them in a wide swath to dry them after they dive. And as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh, I'm turning into my parents. But as far as movies, I can identify any character, side actor, bit part, and tell you almost their entire resume. So I'm really good about like interrupting a movie and be like, you know who that guy was in? Episode 23 of Growing Pains. Where? I can't remember like what I was supposed to do yesterday morning, but I can remember faces and names of all the side characters in even the most obscure movies. I just have that useless film knowledge, which we got to turn this into something someday. It's got to mean something somewhere. But so anyway, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all of you taking time to be here today with us. Thank you for joining. For listeners, we hope you had a great experience and hope you check out Superstars. Don't forget to leave us a review and rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us with visibility. And if you like a little extra romance talk, join us in The Author Next Door After Dark. This month, we're discussing power dynamics in romance, why chemistry isn't random. And we'll be unpacking power shifts that exist in every romance while talking about the new Amazon hit show Off Campus. I know all these guys are going to want to join for that for sure.
It is hockey.
It's hockey. Until next time, keep writing, keep doing, and we'll see ya.
Thanks. Bye.
We're so glad you joined us for this episode of The Author Next Door.
Writing is a long game, and it's one best played with community, curiosity, and a little grace for yourself along the way.
Keep showing up, keep learning, and keep telling stories only you can tell.
We'll see you next week, right here next door.